Hi there, Martin Bailey here. Today we're going to take a look at some focus stacking techniques. Focus stacking is when you have a very shallow depth of field, such as with macro work. With macro, even at f11 or f16, you only have a few millimeters of depth of field. So if you want to get a subject that's maybe 5 centimeters in depth, all in focus, you have to shoot a number of images and then stitch them together in Photoshop. There are other tools that you can use, but I don't use them, so we won't go into that. There are two main ways of actually making your images for a focus stack. The one that we'll do today is you basically use what's called a macro rail, and this is, with these screws on here, you can move the camera forward in increments that you can read out on here. So what we can actually do is we can tell exactly how many millimeters we need to move each time as we focus through the subject. You can also do this by simply focusing on, I usually start at the back of the subject, the furthest point that I want to be in focus, and move forwards. I know that it doesn't make much sense, but I just find that Photoshop has a better job of doing the stitching, the stacking and the focus, the masking and everything if you start from the back. So basically, if I want to get this whole flower in focus, I would focus at the very back here and then just incrementally move through about 5 millimeters at a time until I get to this end of the flower. And that way, when we stitch them all together, the whole flower will be perfectly in focus. Now, as I say, you can do that by simply refocusing. Start at the back and then adjust the focus, moving it one increment, say 5 millimeters or so at a time. Or you can use a focusing rail. So the focusing rail, again, it's got these little millimeter laser etched increments here, so you have a scale to work to. And I'm going to use this today, but you can do both ways. And although I'm sure there's loads of information on this on the internet, I've found that both ways work just as well. I prefer this way when I have a rail with me. If not, I just focus through. Okay, so what we're going to do is, here's my iPhone app, and in here we've got a depth of field calculator, and I've set my camera, I've set the length, this focal length, which is 100mm for this macro lens, and I like to use an aperture of f11 when I'm focus stacking. The subject to distance is about 50 centimeters, and you measure that from the film plane. This little thing on the side of the viewfinder here is the film plane, the mark where the film plane is. You measure that from there to the subject, and it's 50 centimeters. And with that, we can see that we have a depth of field of 1.36 millimeters. And from that, that's based on a print at 8 by 10 inches. So if you want to look at it larger than that, or you want to print larger, you actually have to go a little bit tighter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the macro sliding rail by 5 millimeters at a time. That's over double what we need, but just to be safe, I'm going to shoot a few more images. I've got another flower in the foreground here. That's just to give us a little bit better reflection in the droplets on the main flower. It's not great, I'm using studio lighting today because I want to just get the beautiful light on the main flower, and I don't really want to be setting up all other lights while I'm trying to video this, so we'll overlook that for now, but it'll just give us a slightly better reflection in the droplets. And remember that you need to put your camera in manual focus. If you don't, every time you either release the shutter, or I'm actually going to use a cable release so that we can do this without getting any camera shake. I've got the camera set into mirror lockup mode. If I was doing this without studio lighting, I would use the live view and actually view each one on here as I'm moving the camera. But with studio lighting, with this studio lighting at least, the live view doesn't work. So I'm going to do it with mirror lockup and just shoot each image with the cable release. So okay, we will start. I just want to check I've got, right now, I have the focus on the very back side of the flower, the furthest petal that I want in focus, the furthest petal on the flower from the camera. And we're going to shoot the first image. Okay, we see it come up on the back of the camera here. And then I'm going to move the sliding rail 5mm. So here we go. There's 5mm, and shoot another frame. Okay, and we're just going to repeat that until the focus is on this side of the flower. Remember, as I said, you can do this by refocusing if you want to. It doesn't really matter. Okay, keep going. Just check the focus. Okay, so the focus right now is almost on the nearest petal to me. So I'm going to keep going for another 5mm. And one more 5mm increment, see where that takes us. That's actually now just at this very, maybe past. I'm going to do one more just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that this last one is, everything's going to be out of focus. Okay, so looking good. Let's take a quick check on the back of the camera. Yep, all looking good. Okay, so now let's take these onto the computer and process them. Okay, so now we're on the computer. I wanted to show you a couple of things. Here are the images that we just shot. I've already been through the last couple where the focus was too close to this part and it had gone past this side of the flower, so we're not going to use those. And this is the one where we focused at the far end. Now I'm going to show you, I've actually already gone through and aligned these all in Lightroom. Let me just show you a few here. As we go through, you'll see that I'm actually aligning these myself in Lightroom. The reason for this is because sometimes Photoshop doesn't do a great job of realigning the images, and with macro especially, when using rails, of course, you're moving the camera, so the flower changes size slightly as you move it. But also, if you use the focusing, when you just adjust the focus without moving the camera, with most macro lenses, you're actually changing the magnification anyway, so the size of the flower changes. So we have to take that into account when we merge the images together. Now, Photoshop used to be really good at just getting them all in line, and Photoshop seems to have got a little bit stupid over the last couple of versions, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't, I find that you have to go in and actually align them as close as you possibly can, like this, but by cropping and moving them around in Lightroom. Also note that if you watch this soon after I record it, and you'll probably be at Photoshop CC version 15.1, and this is broken. This feature is broken in 15.1. I had to revert to 15.0 or CC 2014 so that I could do this demo today. But those are a couple of things like that to keep in mind, but otherwise we're good to go. Notice also that I've color coded these. Whenever I've got images in a batch of photographs that I'm going to stitch together, whether it's for this sort of work, for panoramas, and the same goes for HDR, I always mark the first one as green for go, and then amber for like go with caution, like traffic lights, and then red for stop. And this just shows me later on which images I used for specific stitches or panoramas, etc. Okay, so we're going to select all of these, right click, and select Edit In and Open as Layers in Photoshop. You can do this with the various ways of actually doing this in Photoshop, but this is how we're going to do it for now. This is a message because I've had to downgrade Photoshop to do this. You won't normally see that. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. I need to resize. I've actually changed the size of my screen so that we can record this. So it looks a bit strange at the moment. I'll resize as soon as the job is done. Okay, so there we see all of the images that have been loaded into Photoshop for us. If I just move up there, you can see that down the bottom here, you may not be able to see this actually on the recording, but the images, because we've brought them through from raw files, Photoshop is actually, it understands where the original crops and movements have been done on the raw files. So what I'm going to do, just to sort of be safe, is bring this in. I've got this locked down to a 3:2 up here ratio, so that we don't move away from the standard ratio for images. It's up to you whether you do that or not. I like to keep them at 3:2 or one of the other standard sort of proportions, so that it makes printing easier. Now that I've done that, I am going to just crop there. So now I've done that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to align them again. So auto align images, and I'm going to turn off geometric distortion, things like that, because it sometimes messes it up. Like I say, Photoshop used to be much better at this stuff, and it actually seems to have got a little bit stupid over the last couple of versions. Okay, so you'll see that it's actually cropped that down again. So once more, we'll go in and just crop down so that we don't get any extra sort of margins and things around the edges. Note that when I'm using this technique, I just shoot a little bit wider than normal because I know I'm going to do this. Okay, so crop down again, got rid of all of the edges. And now, at the moment, you can see that these are all in line. The last image beneath each one is slightly different as the focus comes forward. But then once we've done that, we will go in and under Edit, we will select Auto Blend Layers. And I'm going to turn off seamless tones and colors because that can mess things up as well. And we'll just give this a moment to go through and look at each image and find out which parts of the image are the most sharp, the sharpest part of each layer, and then it will automatically mask out the rest of the image using only the sharpest parts, and we'll have our focus stack. Just to make it obvious what I've done, I didn't really walk you through that very well, but note that I did select each of these images in each of the layers in the layers palette here before I did that. But now you see, let's zoom in just a little bit. Now you'll see that it's stuck to, oops, wrong one, let's hit the space bar. So it actually it went in and it's chosen the sharpest part of each of the layers. So now as we look through the image, we can see all of the nice sharp bits and everything is in focus. And that's basically what you use focus stacking for. Note that I often, when doing it with a flower like this, I don't create a focus for the stem. I don't necessarily want to see that sharp. So that's fine for me for that to be like that. But that's it really. It's obviously, you can see down here all of the masks have been created for us, and Photoshop has masked in all of the parts that are in focus for each layer and masked out all of the bits that aren't in focus, so that we only get the best parts. And once you've finished with your image, if you just make sure that everything's good and you don't have any strange remnants, and when you've finished, to save disk space, if you want to do that, you can flatten the image or merge layers, but flattening the image will help you to save disk space. This becomes a very big file if you just save it as it is. Okay, so that's it. Thanks very much for watching today. Remember, you can find me over at martinbaileyphotography.com. I've got the podcast there with over 400 podcasts, and we've got tours and workshops and all sorts of other goodies. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook and Google, etc. And all of the links for those are at the top page here, the top of the right sidebar if you go into many of the blog pages, such as the blog posts, etc. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you online, and either way I'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks very much. Bye bye.